All right, we're here in the office of Representative Thomas Massie from Kentucky. There was just a vote on the House floor. Now, I guess with all that's taking place in Syria with Turkey, you would assume that if there's going to be an American military response, there would be a vote to authorize the use of military force. That's not the case, is it?
That's not what happened. Today, Congress, Nancy Pelosi turned the Constitution upside down. The Constitution clearly says Congress should declare war if there's going to be a war, and that the president should wage the war. Okay. Well, today, instead of declaring war or authorizing troops to be there, which we should have done years ago if we were going to do it, we passed a bill that basically tries to wage the war in a way differently than the president is waging the war. So this is the opposite roles that the Founding Fathers applied to us. President's supposed to wage war, Congress is supposed to authorize and declare war. Today, without ever authorizing or declaring war, we're trying to tell the president how to wage it.
I saw Eric Swalwell had said maybe it's time to rethink Turkey's role in NATO. And that's a fair debate, right? And I know it's Eric Swalwell. But right now as we speak, Turkey is a NATO ally, has been since 1952, is protected by Article 5, the Common Defense Provision. What is it that Democrats and some Republicans want this president to do? I mean, who's the enemy here if there's going to be military action?
This is the other constitutional problem we have here with what the mainstream media is trying to put out. They're saying we had some kind of treaty with the Kurds. They're ignoring the real treaty that we have through NATO with Turkey, and they're neglecting the fact that there was never any treaty, that the president didn't make a treaty, and there was no treaty that was approved by the Senate, which is what the Constitution requires. So to say that the Kurds are our allies, well, who determined that? When was that? Somebody at the State Department? Who made that decision?
I get that there were so many militia groups that fought alongside our special operations forces against ISIS. And nobody, I don't think anybody's rooting for the destruction of the Kurdish people. But there are factions of the Kurds that are considered terrorist groups, and they have committed acts of terror against Turkey. So if there is action against Turkey, they're our ally. We're supposed to be on their side. If we were to attack Turkey, what would that do to NATO? I mean, the Democrats have said that this president is sought to tear at the fabric of NATO, but actually he's standing with our NATO allies. If we attack Turkey, aren't we the enemy?
We can't attack Turkey. Like, that's out of the realm of even possibility, in my opinion. They're a NATO ally. I mean, why would you go about that? If you go back about 4 or 5 years and read articles about the Kurds, you can get closer to the truth. And it doesn't matter. You can read New York Times, Washington Post, some of the ones that maybe aren't that reliable, and you'll find that they are acknowledging that the Kurds are terrorists in the context of Turkey. Like, that was a designation that they were given by us, that they're basically terrorists in Turkey. Now, there are disparate groups of Kurds, but even when you go back and read the articles 4 or 5 years ago, they kind of acknowledge that the Kurds in Syria are communicating with the Kurds in Turkey and taking direction from there.
On the political side, are there some Republicans that are ignoring the Democrats' desperation to get the anti-war left out into the streets, right? I mean, they want this president to embroil the United States in another quagmire so they can start chanting about bombing brown people or killing Muslims or racist, unjust, illegal war. I don't think some Republicans are remembering 6 of the 8 years of George W. Bush, right? I mean, the Democrats voted to authorize the use of military force in Iraq, and then they immediately turned on George Bush and went with the anti-war movement. How do some Republicans not see this play?
So we've got a few Republicans here, not all of them, but a few. They're going to be for any war that happens. Like, I want to get that T-shirt that says I'm against the next war already, but there's some Republicans that up here that need to be wearing a shirt that says I'm for the next war already, whether they know whether it is or not. And that's just the situation you have here. I don't know. It's hard to impute any sort of chess move type motives to any of my colleagues. I think they're up here playing checkers on the chessboard. And it's a simple enough explanation for what you saw in the vote here in Congress is that Democrats are generally anti-war, but most of them have Trump derangement syndrome, or a lot of their constituents do. And so they have to do what their constituents want, and some of their constituents want them just to do the opposite of whatever the president's doing.
But see, so here you have the Democrats that
resist.
That claim to be the anti-war faction, right?
Yeah.
They're the anti-war left. They were in the streets through all of George Bush's years in office. They called him a murderer. They called him a racist. They said it was a war for oil. He was doing the bidding of Halliburton. And now you have a president who says, look, there's a mess in the Middle East, and we keep inserting ourselves in it, right? Maybe we should just sit this one out. And the anti-war left is now using hashtags like Trump genocide. But if he started a war with Turkey, they'd say it was Trump genocide.
Right. Well, here's the thing. The Democrats control the majority in the House of Representatives. If they want to declare war, they could put that motion on the floor tomorrow and they could declare war. They're not doing it. The real disappointing thing for me in this recent vote on the Syria issue is that I have worked with some of these anti-war Democrats. I mean, I've worked against my own party leadership to try and get a vote on Yemen. I've been down on the floor protesting. I've demanded 40 recorded votes in a row, much to the consternation of my colleagues, just to get a vote on whether we should be at war in Yemen. And I had Democrats, anti-war Democrats, standing there with me working on this issue because that was on the other side of Trump at the time. And now they're totally gone. There wasn't a single Democrat who voted against this resolution and on Syria. And what the resolution said, it basically is, we shouldn't withdraw from Syria.
So it sounds like even if the Democrats want to pretend they're anti-war, if they could just get a short-term conflict that they could blame on Trump, they could say, see, we told you he's a warmonger, he hates Muslims, he can't wait to drop bombs, vote Democrat. I mean, that's even more disingenuous because now they're playing not with just the lives of the Kurds, but then they're also playing with the lives of American troops. And when they say this doesn't have the potential to become a quagmire, actually, I'm old enough to remember them saying that Iraq was George Bush's Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, and also Obama dropped, 26,000 bombs? Like, the reality is Trump is more anti-war than Obama. He's like the first president since I could start voting who hasn't started a war somewhere. Yeah, he launched some missiles into Syria, but do you remember, these were basically warning shots. One set of them went into a warehouse, one of them went into an airfield where I think they probably got tipped off, hey, we're just going to destroy your planes, you better get out of there. And then on the recent thing, when all of the people surrounding the president were chanting for war with Iran, he asked them, okay, if I respond to the drone that was shot down, how many people will die? He said, well, probably about 200 people. He said, not worth it. I'm not going to kill.
It's a robot.
Yeah, it was a robot. I'm not going to kill 200 people for a robot. I don't care if they got a different color skin than us. I don't care if they have a different religion. I'm not going to kill them over a robot. This president is far more compassionate and has a much more sane foreign policy than either Obama or Bush, frankly.